There are moments in life that draw a line between before and after. Moments so sharp they wake up something inside you that you didn't even know was sleeping. My name is Eleanor Hayes. I'm 68 years old, and for most of my life I've been the woman who gives in for love. I gave in when my husband Arthur wanted to paint our house blue instead of the sage green the first loved. I gave in when our son Edward chose engineering over joining the family hardware business. And I kept giving in long after Arthur's cancer took him 5 years ago, when the silence in our home started feeling heavier than any winter blanket. This house in Willow Creek, Oregon, we built it together. 40 years of me teaching 3rd grade at St. Michael's Elementary. 40 years of Arthur working swing shifts at the lumber mill. We skipped vacations, ate simple meals, saved every extra dollar so we could have this roof, this yard, these walls that remember every laugh, every tear, every Christmas morning. Arthur didn't get to enjoy the paid-off mortgage for long. Pancreatic cancer stole him too quickly. He left me with yellowed photo albums, his old flannel shirts I still can't bear to donate, and a house that suddenly felt far too big for one person. When Edward lost his job at the big construction firm in Portland, I thought maybe it was a sign. My only son, my boy, would come home. He'd bring his wife Lillian and my grandchildren, David and Sophie. The house would be alive again. The silence would end. I spent days preparing. Fresh flowers on every table. Homemade bread rising on the counter. I cleaned corners that hadn't been touched in years. I wanted them to feel this was their home too, not just a temporary stop. The day they arrived, I hugged Edward so tightly I felt his ribs. He looked thinner, shadows under his eyes, the defeated slump of a man who'd carried too much pride for too long. David, my gentle 17-year-old grandson, wrapped his arms around me the way he always had, like he was still small. Sophie, 14 and glued to her phone, gave me a half wave without looking up. And then there was Lillian. Perfect hair, perfect smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Thank you for having us, Eleanor," she said in that honey-sweet voice that always felt edged with steel. "It's temporary, of course. As soon as Edward finds something, we'll be out of your hair." Something in her tone made me feel like a guest in my own home. But I pushed it down. Hard times bring out stress, I told myself. A lost job wounds pride, especially for someone like Lillian, who'd grown used to a certain life. The first hours were chaos, suitcases, boxes, deciding bedrooms. Lillian insisted on the master suite, the room Arthur and I had shared for 32 years. I didn't argue. Couples need their space, I thought. I moved my things to the small guest room overlooking the garden. I could hear the birds at dawn there. It would be fine. That first evening I made beef stew, my mother's recipe, the one Edward used to beg for when he came home starving from basketball practice at the community center. I set the table with my good china, lit candles, opened the bottle of Cabernet Arthur and I had saved for a special night that never came. The family is together again, I thought as I stirred the pot. That's reason enough to celebrate. At 8 o'clock I called everyone to the table. David arrived first, helping me carry plates. Edward came next, tired but smiling when he saw the stew, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. Sophie sat without looking up from her screen. Lillian appeared last, freshly styled hair, wearing a silk blouse that seemed too elegant for a family kitchen. I remember every detail like it's happening right now. Steam rising from the bowls. The smell of rosemary and thyme from my garden. The soft clink of silverware on china. I was serving my own plate when Lillian set her fork down with a sharp clack that cut through the room. She looked straight at me, eyes cold and steady. "I'm in charge of this house now," she said. "Take your plate and go eat outside with the dogs." Time froze. David's fork slipped and clattered against his plate. Edward stared at his bowl like the stew had suddenly become fascinating. Sophie let out a nervous giggle, glancing at her mother with something like awe. And me, I felt ice water pour down my spine. It wasn't just the words. It was seeing my son, my Edward, the boy I raised alone after his father's double shifts, say nothing. Not one word. "No, Mom, that's not okay." No defense. Just silence. I could have screamed. I could have cried. I could have thrown the pot against the wall. But something else happened instead. Something deep inside me, Something that had been sleeping for decades opened its eyes. I smiled. Not a happy smile. Not a defeated one. The smile of a woman who finally sees clearly after years in fog. I stood slowly, walked to the small table by the refrigerator, picked up the cordless phone I'd kept there for 30 years. Everyone watched. Lillian with defiance. Edward with shame. David with quiet sadness. Sophie with teenage curiosity. I dialed the number I knew by heart. When Grace answered, I spoke calmly. Grace, the time has come. Activate Protocol Dawn. I hung up. Then I sat back down, picked up my spoon, and ate my stew as if nothing had happened. Lillian's voice cracked the silence. What was that? Who did you call? A friend, I said. You'll understand tomorrow. The food's getting cold. The rest of dinner passed in suffocating quiet. I could feel their confusion, their tension, but for the first time in years I felt peaceful. Like a weight I'd carried so long I forgot it was there had finally lifted. That night, while the house slept, I sat in the garden with my 2 old labs, faithful companions who never judged, never demanded, just loved. I stroked their heads and whispered, "Things are going to change, my friends. Eleanor Hayes has remembered who she is." What Lillian didn't know, what no one knew, was that I'd been ready for this moment for 5 years. After Arthur died, the loneliness was crushing. The house felt too big, too quiet. Edward's visits grew rarer. Lillian's excuses multiplied. And I started noticing things. The way she looked at the house like it was already hers. The way Edward kept suggesting I sell it. It's too much for you alone, Mom. The news stories about elderly parents tricked into signing over homes, then moved into care facilities against their will. I wasn't paranoid. I was realistic. That's when I met Doris Miller at the Widows Support Group at St. Michael's. Doris had lost everything, her home, her independence, because she trusted the wrong family member. Her niece Grace, a lawyer, had fought to get her out of a substandard nursing home, but the house was gone. Doris looked at me over coffee and said words I'll never forget. Eleanor, older women, especially widows, are seen as burdens or bank accounts. The world waits for us to become weak so it can take what we built. That night I couldn't sleep. The next week I met Grace at her small downtown office. She listened without judgment. She showed me cases, sons who forged signatures, daughters-in-law who convinced courts of diminished capacity, families who sold homes out from under parents who were still living in them. Love is beautiful, Grace told me, but love without legal protection is dangerous. That's how the New Dawn Foundation was born. We used Arthur's life insurance and the house itself as seed assets. Legally, the property transferred to an irrevocable trust. I became lifelong director with the right to reside there forever. Any major decision, sale, renovation, eviction, required board approval. Grace, Doris, Father Michael from St. Michael's, and me. My neighbor Robert Davies, a retired police captain and widower, found out during one of our evening garden talks. He didn't just support it. He became a donor and board member. "This is what Arthur would have wanted," he said. "You protected, and your kindness helping others." Over 5 years we quietly helped 4 other widows secure their homes. We offered free legal clinics, created an emergency fund, kept everything low profile. My family never knew. Not because I distrusted Edward completely. Because I'd learned that trust without protection is just exposure. We called it Protocol Dawn, a rapid response plan Grace designed. One phone call would activate lawyers, notaries, and, if needed, protective orders. I never thought I'd use it. Especially not on day one. The next morning I woke early, made coffee, sat in my rocking chair by the window. Grace texted, "All set. We'll be there at 10. I dressed carefully. The blue dress Arthur always said brought out my eyes. I wanted to meet this moment with dignity. Lillian came downstairs at 9:30, already dressed like she was going to a board meeting. "Good morning, Eleanor. What's for breakfast?" "Good morning, Lillian. Coffee's fresh, bread's in the basket, fruit's in the fridge. Help yourself." She frowned. My calm tone seemed to irritate her more than anger would have. She poured coffee, sat across from me. "About last night," she started, not meeting my eyes. "I was tired. Stressed. I shouldn't have said those things." It wasn't an apology. It was damage control. Years ago I would have accepted it to keep peace. Not today. "Lillian," I said evenly. "We both know you meant every word. What you don't know is that you made a serious mistake." She looked up, surprised. Before she could answer, the doorbell rang. "That's for me," I said, rising. "I'm expecting visitors." At the door stood Grace with her briefcase, Robert in his usual flannel, and a notary public. I invited them in. Edward came downstairs in pajamas, confused. "Mom, who are these people?" "Friends," I said. "And they're here on legal business that concerns all of us. Wake the children, please. This affects them too." The next 10 minutes were surreal. David and Sophie shuffled in, sleepy and wary. Lillian demanded answers. We gathered in the living room, the same room where Arthur and I opened Christmas presents, where Edward took prom photos, where we held Arthur's wake. Grace spoke first, calm and professional. She explained the New Dawn Foundation, showed the trust documents, the deed transfer from 5 years earlier, the bylaws. The notary confirmed authenticity. In summary, this property belongs to the New Dawn Foundation. Eleanor Hayes is lifelong director with residency rights. Any occupants must sign a lease and pay market rate rent, or vacate within 30 days. Silence fell like snow, thick, suffocating. Edward stared at me like I was a stranger. Lillian went from shock to rage in seconds. "This is a scam," she shouted. "Edward, do something. She's lost her mind. We need to have her committed." Robert's voice cut through, low and firm. "I suggest you choose your words very carefully, Mrs. Walsh. Everything Ms. Vance has said is legal, documented, and in place long before you moved in." David sat frozen, eyes darting between his mother and me. Sophie, for once without her phone, looked like a scared little girl again. "I don't understand," Edward whispered. "Mom, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you trust me?" His pain hurt worse than Lillian's cruelty. "Because, son," I said gently, "this wasn't about distrusting you. It was about protecting myself and others from what happens when vulnerability meets entitlement. After your father died, I saw too many stories like Doris's. I decided to turn my home into something that could outlive me and help others." "But you could have told me," he insisted, voice breaking. "I wanted to believe I'd never need to," I answered. But I also saw how Lillian looked at this house. The comments about selling it. The suggestions I downsize. I prepared, just in case. Lillian laughed bitterly. "You're so naive, Edward. She set this up because she doesn't trust us. She'd rather give her house to strangers than her own family." "Lillian, enough," Edward snapped. Finally. Grace continued. "You have options. Sign a lease and pay rent. Market rate for a home this size in Willow Creek is $3,200 a month. Or vacate within 30 days. Edward's face crumpled. "We can't afford that. We barely have savings for 2 months." I spoke then. "There's a third option. You can stay temporarily rent-free, but only with conditions." Grace looked surprised. We hadn't discussed this. "What conditions?" Edward asked, hope flickering. "Respect," I said simply. "Respect for me, for my home, for my decisions. I'm not a servant, not a burden, not invisible. I'm Eleanor Hayes, director of the New Dawn Foundation and the woman who built this life. If you can live with that truth, we can negotiate a temporary arrangement while you get back on your feet." Lillian opened her mouth to argue. Edward raised a hand. "I need time to process this. We'll talk later, Mom. Just you and me." I nodded. Grace left the lease draft and bylaws on the coffee table. The notary certified delivery. They left, not without private words of support for me first. "Are you sure about this, Eleanor?" Grace asked quietly. "I have to give my son a chance," I said. "It wasn't him who insulted me." Robert muttered as he passed, The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that tree's roots are rotten. I thanked them, promised daily check-ins, and reminded them Protocol Dawn's next steps, protective order and my relocation to Doris's, were still ready if needed. The rest of that day was tense silence. Lillian locked herself in the master bedroom. Sophie shadowed her, throwing resentful glances. David came to me while I watered the garden. "Grandma," he said softly, "I'm sorry about last night. What Mom said was wrong." I hugged him. David had Arthur's gentle heart. "It's not your fault, sweetheart. Adults sometimes lose their way." "The foundation is amazing," he said, sitting beside me on Arthur's old bench. "You really help other grandmas." I told him about Margaret, Albert, Carmen, stories of loss and reclamation. His eyes lit up. "Can I help?" "Of course," I said. "We need young hearts like yours." That evening Edward came to the kitchen alone. We sat at the table where so many family talks had happened. "Why, Mom?" he asked. "Why didn't you tell me?" "At first it was caution," I explained. "Then it became purpose. I saw too many elders lose everything. I wanted to turn my home into something that could protect others after I'm gone." "I would never hurt you," he insisted. "I wanted to believe that," I said. "But silence hurts too, Edward. Last night your silence hurt more than Lillian's words." He looked down. "Things have been hard. The layoff, the bills, Lillian's stress. I should have spoken up. I'm sorry." We talked late, about his job hunt, the kids, the foundation. For the first time in years I felt I was speaking to my son again, not the man caught between wife and mother. When he left for bed I stayed in the kitchen, listening to Arthur's old clock tick. "I hope I'm doing the right thing," I whispered to the empty room. The next morning Lillian didn't come down. Edward looked like he hadn't slept. "Lillian wants to leave," he said quietly. "She says she can't live under these conditions. It's humiliating." I wasn't surprised. Pride was Lillian's armor. "And you?" I asked. "I don't know what to think," he admitted. "Part of me understands you. What she said was wrong. Your conditions are fair. But she's my wife. The mother of my kids. We're in crisis. I don't want to break the family apart." "Sometimes holding a family together at any cost breaks more than it saves," I said. "Respect has to be the foundation, Edward. Without it, there's only control." He looked at me, really looked, as if seeing me anew. "You've always been strong, haven't you?" he said. "Even when you seemed to give in, it wasn't weakness. It was something else." I smiled. "Life teaches us different kinds of strength, son." That day Lillian packed. She took Sophie to her sisters in Miami. Edward and David stayed. The goodbye was strained, no hugs, few words. As the taxi pulled away I felt relief and grief in equal measure. I hadn't wanted to split them, but I couldn't allow disrespect to live under my roof. That night Robert came for tea. "Did I do the right thing?" I asked. "You did what was necessary," he said. "And sometimes necessary is right." Weeks passed. Edward threw himself into job applications. David volunteered at the foundation, connecting with seniors in a way that touched my heart. Sophie and I talked by video. She seemed softer, more thoughtful. Then came the envelope. Edward handed it to me after dinner. "It's from Lillian," he said. I opened it with steady hands. "Dear Eleanor, circumstances forced me to reflect. My behavior was unacceptable. I apologize for the pain I caused. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm working to be better, for Edward, for the children, for myself. Sincerely, Lillian." Short, simple, but from Lillian, monumental. "She's seeing a therapist," Edward explained. "Her sister's idea. This whole thing made her confront her past, her own mother." I nodded. People aren't all villain or victim. Most are wounded, acting from fear, insecurity, old pain. "Do you think we can be a family again?" Edward asked quietly. "Time will tell," I said. "But rebuilding starts with owning what's broken. And it looks like that's beginning." The true turning point came a month later. Robert suffered a heart attack in his garden. David found him, called 911, stayed until help arrived. When the phone rang, my world tilted. Edward drove me to Portland General in silence. In the waiting room, terror gripped me, memories of Arthur's final days flooding back. Then my phone rang. Lillian. I heard about Robert, she said. I'm on the first flight to Portland. You don't have to. I want to. Robert was kind to me when I didn't deserve it. And you shouldn't go through this alone. 8 hours later, she walked into the waiting room with Sophie. Both exhausted, both determined. How is he? She asked, hugging Edward, then David, then, hesitantly, me. Stable but critical, I said, still stunned. Lillian took off her coat, sat beside me. Sophie took my other hand. For 3 days we held vigil. Lillian organized shifts, brought food, charmed nurses into extra visiting time. One midnight, while others slept in chairs, she brought 2 teas. I couldn't sleep, she said. Thought maybe you couldn't either. I accepted the cup. Silence stretched, comfortable for the first time. I was always afraid of getting old, she confessed. Seeing Robert like this, it makes me think about my own future. Aging isn't for the faint-hearted, I said. But it has gifts. Wisdom. Perspective. Freedom to finally be yourself. You don't seem afraid. I am, I admitted. Afraid of dependence. Of becoming a burden. That's why I built the foundation. To contribute, to stay useful. She was quiet. Then, softly, I underestimated you. I thought kindness was weakness. Generosity was naivety. I was wrong. I judged you as selfish and controlling, I replied. Without seeing your fear. I was wrong too. We looked at each other, the first real understanding in 20 years. We weren't friends yet. But respect had taken root. Robert pulled through. In his hospital room, surrounded by all of us, he smiled weakly. Well, he said, I had to have a heart attack to see the whole family together and at peace. We laughed, because it was true. Lillian spoke first. You're right, she said. Life's too short for grudges. I have a proposal. She turned to me and Edward. We move back to Willow Creek, but differently. We convert the house into 2 units. You keep the main floor, already adapted for you. We take the upper level with separate entrance. We pay fair rent to the foundation. Close enough to help each other, separate enough for independence. Silence, then Sophie's smile lit the room. David nodded. Edward looked at me. It's your house, Mom. Your decision. I looked at this complicated, beautiful, broken and mending family. I think, I said, it could work. With clear rules. Mutual respect. The foundation as legal owner. We sealed the promise 3 weeks later. Robert, still recovering, sat as guest of honor in the garden Arthur and I planted. Edward grilled. Lillian and Sophie set the table. David and I finished the salad. Under Oregon stars we toasted. To new beginnings. To lessons learned the hard way. To a family rebuilt, not perfect, but real. That night, alone in the garden, I spoke to Arthur under the stars. We did it, love, I whispered. Not how we planned. Not without pain. But we did it. The wind moved through the orange tree he planted. And I felt him smile. My name is Eleanor Hayes. I am 68. And today I remember my worth. When my daughter-in-law told me to eat with the dogs, I smiled, picked up the phone, and everything changed. If this story touched you, like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more real stories of strength, boundaries, and second chances on Grandma Remembered.